On the far edge of the known galaxy hung a moon made of black crystal and silver mist virellis. It was called a place where time moved slower and the stars whispered secrets to those who dared listen. The moon orbited a dying red giant, its light, dim and heavy like old blood in the sky above the surface. Towers of polished obsidian rose into the clouds, not built, but grown from the bones of ancient dragons, long turned to stone. At the highest balcony of the sky, citadel stood Princess Lyra, her bare feet pressed against the cool glassy floor, her silver hair loose and drifting in the thin wind. She wore no crown, no armor, only a simple tunic woven from moon-moth silk. Her eyes were not like other elves. They did not glow with pride or fury. They held something deeper, something quiet, like the space between heartbeats. Beside her coiled Orin, her pet dragon, smaller than the legends claimed, but far more dangerous. Orin's scales were not black, but shifting like oil on water sometimes, violet, sometimes deep blue, sometimes the color of a void where light dared not go. His wings were folded tight against his body. His tail curled around Lyra's feet like a living shield. He did not speak, not with words, but Lyra understood him better than any counselor or kin. Below them, the silver forests of virellis pulsed with soft light. Each tree, a living antenna tuned to the hum of distant stars. Pollen drifted upward like tiny stars rising against gravity. The beauty was fragile, and everyone knew it would not last. War was coming. The Krellax Empire had broken through the outer rim. Their ships were not metal, but living hives grown from thought and hunger. They consumed worlds not for resources but for silence. They erased civilizations to quiet the noise of free will. Their queen, a being of pure hive mind, had set her eyes on virellis, not for its crystals or its dragons, but for its song. The elven star singers had long been the keepers of cosmic harmony, and the Krellax could not tolerate harmony. Lyra had heard the war drums 3 nights ago. Not real drums, but the psychic tremors sent through the ether by Krellax advanced scouts. They came not with weapons first, but with fear. They wanted the elves to break before the first shot was fired. But something else had come that same night, something no one expected. A ship, small, silent, and utterly human. It slipped through the blockade like a ghost, past sentinel drones that should have detected even a single atom out of place. It carried no flag, no signal, no transponder code. Just a faint hum like an old lullaby played on a broken music box. Lyra had felt it before she saw it. A vibration in her chest, a memory she did not own. Orin had growled low and deep. Not a warning, but a question. Now she waited. The High Queen, her mother, had summoned the War Council for dawn. But Lyra could not sit in that room of mirrors and daggers, not yet. Not while that ship sat in the lower docking bay, untouched, unexamined. She turned from the balcony, Orin rising with her, his claws clicking softly on the obsidian floor. They moved through the citadel halls, silent as shadows. The walls here were alive with faint pulses of light, veins of energy running through the stone. The citadel remembered every footstep, every whisper. At the docking bay, the air was colder, sterile. The only sound, the hum of containment fields. The human ship sat alone, no bigger than a scout pod, its surface scarred by micrometeorites and time. It bore no markings, just smooth, dull metal that seemed to drink the light around it. Guards stood at a distance, uneasy. They had not boarded it. No one had dared. Lyra stepped forward, Orin at her side. His eyes fixed on the hatch. It opened, not with a hiss or a clang, but with a soft sigh like a door opening in a dream. A man stepped out. He was tall but not imposing, lean with calloused hands and eyes that held no fear, only quiet focus. He wore simple clothes, dark and worn. No armor, no weapon at his hip, just a small pouch tied to his belt. His skin was sun-touched, his hair short and brown. His face lined not by age but by distance, by years spent between star. She looked at Lyra and did not bow. He did not speak. He simply stood. Orin let out a low rumble but did not attack. Instead, he tilted his head as if listening. Lyra felt it. Then the same hum from the ship, now coming from the man himself. A resonance deep in her bones. It matched the pulse of the silver forests. It matched the rhythm of Orin's breath. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice soft but clear. The man reached into his pouch and pulled out a small crystal no bigger than a thumb. It glowed faintly blue inside it. Something moved. Not data, not code, but a memory. He held it out or took it. The moment her fingers touched it, the world shifted. She saw a blue planet, green oceans, white clouds, cities of glass and steel, then fire, then silence. Then a single voice singing under a broken sky. A woman's voice, soft and tired, singing to a child a lullaby. In a language long dead, Arth, the human homeworld, gone for over 8,000 years. Everyone said humans had wiped themselves out in their own wars, too violent, too chaotic, too fragile. But this man stood before her, alive, breathing, real, and Oren had not killed him. That alone meant something. The guards shifted nervously. One stepped forward. But Lyra raised a hand. "He is under my protection," she said. The man nodded once, not in thanks, but in understanding. "What is your name?" she asked. "Cole," he said. "Just Cole, no title." No lineage, no grand declaration. Lyra studied him. He did not look like a warrior. He looked like someone who had walked through fire and kept walking. "Why are you here?" Cole looked past her toward the silver forests, then up at the dying red giant in the sky. "To remind you what you've forgotten," he said. Lyra frowned. "What have we forgotten?" he said simply. Oren exhaled a puff of cold mist that froze the air into tiny crystals. They hung for a moment, then fell like snow. Lyra knew then this was no accident. This was no lost traveler. Cole had come for a reason, and Oren knew it too. Back in the citadel, the bells began to chime. The war council was gathering. Lyra turned to Cole. "You will come with me." He did not argue as they walked through the halls. Oren stayed close, his eyes never leaving Cole, not with suspicion, but with something like recognition. In the grand chamber of mirrored stone, the elven warlords stood in their finery cloaks of starlight, blades of frozen time. They argued over tactics, over honor, over who would lead the first strike. The High Queen sat on her throne, carved from the fang of the last sky dragon. Her face stern, her eyes sharp as shattered glass. Lyra entered. Silence fell. Then gasps for behind her walked a human, a myth, a ghost, a cautionary tale. The warlords recoiled, some reached for their weapons. The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Lyra, you bring filth into this hall. He is not filth," Lyra said calmly. "He came through the blockade unseen. He carries no weapon, only this." She held up the crystal. The Queen rose, her voice like ice. "Humans are extinct, primitive, chaotic. They burned their own world. They are not welcome here." Cole did not flinch. He met the Queen's gaze and said nothing. Lyra stepped forward. "Mother, listen," but the Queen raised a hand. "You will explain yourself later, Lyra. For now, lock this creature in the vault. Let the sentinels scan him for hive traces." Lyra's heart pounded, but she did not protest. Not yet. As guards moved to take Cole, Oren let out a sound, not a roar, but a deep vibration that made the mirrors crack. Everyone froze. Lyra placed a hand on Oren's neck. "Calm, boy." Oren lowered his head, but his eyes stayed on the Queen. Cole was led away silently, but Lyra knew this was only the beginning. That night she stood again on the balcony, Oren beside her, the crystal in her palm still humming. She thought of Cole's eyes, the way he looked at the stars, not with wonder, but with sorrow. Humans had not died out. They had hidden, and now one had returned, not to beg, not to fight, but to remind. Oren nudged her hand gently. She looked at him. "You know him, don't you?" Oren blinked once. Yes, the answer was not spoken but felt. Deep in the undercaves beneath the citadel lay the Heart Forge, a place no one had entered in centuries. It was said to hold the last dragon egg, the first and final gift of the Star Singers. Lyra made her decision. She would take Cole there and see what the egg said, because if Oren recognized him and the crystal sang of Earth, then perhaps the humans had not been forgotten. Perhaps they had been waiting, and the war with the Krelax was not just about survival. It was about remembering what it meant to be alive. Lyra turned from the balcony. Oren followed. The stars watched, in silence, and far below in his cell Cole sat with his eyes closed, smiling faintly, as if he already knew what would happen next. Morning came to Virelli's, not with light but with a slow brightening of the red giant's glow. The sky turned from deep violet to burnt copper. The silver forests below shimmered with dew that was not water but liquid starlight. The air hummed with tension the kind that comes before thunder inside the sky. Citadel, the grand chamber filled once more. Warlords in polished armor, advisors with eyes like knives, and the High Queen seated on her throne of dragon fang. Her expression unreadable, but her fingers tapping once-twice against the armrest, a sign she was not patient. Lyra entered alone. Oren had been asked to stay outside. The Queen feared his presence would unsettle the council. But Lyra knew the truth. The Queen feared what Oren might do if provoked. She walked to the center of the room, her boots silent on the mirrored floor. "You summoned me, Mother," Lyra said. The Queen did not look at her instead. She addressed the room. "The Krelax have taken the seventh ring world their hive. Ships now gather at the Vale of Tears. They will be here within 3 cycles." A warlord named Vela stepped forward, her armor lined with shards of fallen stars. "We must strike first. Burn their advance fleet before they form the mind." Netan know their warlord. Corin shook his head. "No. We hold the citadel. Let them break against our shields, then crush them in the debris field." Voices rose, arguments tangled like vines. Lyra waited. Then the Queen turned to her. "And what does my daughter say?" Lyra took a breath. "I say we are already losing." Silence. "How?" she asked. "Because we fight like them, like machines, like hives. We have forgotten why we sing." The warlord scoffed. The Queen's eyes narrowed. "You speak in riddles, child." "No," Lyra said. "I speak in truth." She turned to the guards at the door. "Bring him." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The guards hesitated. "Do it," the Queen said, her voice sharp. Moments later, Cole entered. He wore the same simple clothes, no chains, no restraints, but his hands were empty, his posture calm. He walked to the center of the room and stopped beside Lyra. Gasps echoed off the mirrors. "A human here in the War Council." Own warlord drew his blade. "This is an insult." The Queen raised a hand. "Let him speak." Cole did not speak. At first he looked around the room at the faces of the elves, their sharp features, their proud stances, their fear hidden behind anger. Then he said, "You think the Krelax want your world, your crystals, your dragons." She shook his head. "They do not. They want your silence. Your song is loud. It echoes through the void. It reminds others they are not alone. The Krelax cannot allow that." "How do you know this?" the Queen asked. Cole met her eyes. "Because they came for us too." The room still. 8,000 years ago. Earth was bright, loud, full of voices, too many voices, fighting, shouting, breaking. The Krelax heard it. They sent their whispers into our dreams. They turned brother against brother until we did their work for them. He paused, "But not all of us died. Some hid, some listened, some learned, and now we return not to fight for you, but to remind you how to fight for yourselves." The Queen stood. "You expect us to believe a human, a creature of chaos and dust, holds the answer to a war older than your species?" Cole did not flinch. "I hold no answers, only a memory." He reached into his pouch and pulled out the crystal again. The same one Lyra had touched. He placed it on the floor. It pulsed once. A soft blue light spread across the mirrored surface. Not bright, but deep, like the heart of an ocean. Warlord stepped back, but Oren, who had been waiting outside, let out a low sound. Not a growl, but a hum. And then the mirrors began to sing, not with voices, but with vibrations. Each reflection showing not the room, but flashes of earth, cities, oceans, children laughing under a yellow sun, then fire, then silence, then one voice singing in the dark. The Queen staggered. "What is this?" Lyra stepped forward. "It is what we forgot." The Queen turned to Cole. "Why now?" "Because the Krelax are close," Cole said. "And this time they will not just silence you, they will unmake you, erase your song from time itself." The Queen looked at Lyra. "This why you brought him here?" Lyra nodded. "He is not a weapon, Mother, he is a key." The Queen said nothing for a long moment, then she turned to the guards. "Return him to the vault." Lyra's heart sank. But the Queen added, "Under the princess's watch." Relief washed over her. That night Lyra led Cole through the lower passages of the citadel. Not the grand halls, but the old ways, the paths. Carved by the first star singers, the walls here were rough, unpolished and warm to the touch. Oren followed close behind his scales. Dim but watchful. "Where are we going?" Cole asked. "To the Heartforge," Lyra said. Cole stopped. "You know about it?" "Only stories," she said. But Oren led me to believe it is real. Cole looked at the dragon. You remember, don't you? Oren blinked slowly. Yes, the undercaves opened into a vast chamber. The air thick with the scent of ozone, and old stone in the center sat a pedestal of black rock, and on it rested an egg knot. Large, not glowing, not dramatic. Just an egg, smooth, dark, with faint lines like veins. Lyra approached slowly. This is the last void-scale egg. The first dragons were born from starlight and silence. This one has slept for 10,000 years. Cole knelt before it. He placed his palm on the stone beside it, not on the egg itself, and waited. Nothing happened. Then a soft pulse. The egg trembled. Not much, just a shiver, but Lyra felt it in her chest. Oren lowered his head and let out a sound like wind through ancient trees. The egg pulsed again. This time in time with Cole's heartbeat. Lyra stared how Cole looked up. His eyes bright. Humans did not just survive, we changed. We learned to carry silence inside us. Not empty silence, but the kind that holds space for others to speak, for songs to grow. He stood, the Krellak's fear that more than anything, because silence with hope inside it is louder than any scream. Lyra understood then. The humans had not evolved to fight. They had evolved to remember, and to help others remember. Back in the Citadel, the alarms began to blare. Light flooded the corridors. The outer sentinels had fallen. The Krellaks were early. Lyra ran with Cole and Oren beside her. In the war room, chaos reigned. Reports poured in. Hive ships breaching the Veil of Tears, shields failing on the third ring. The queen stood at the center, her face pale but steady. Lyra, she said, we must evacuate the Citadel. No, Lyra said, we must awaken the heart. Forget. The queen shook her head. It is a myth. It is real, Lyra said. And Cole is the key. The queen looked at Cole, then at the distant sky where black shapes now moved against the stars. Do it, Lyra turned to Cole. Can you? Cole nodded. But it will need more than me. It will need you and Oren and the song. Lyra took a deep breath. Then she began to sing, not a battle hymn, not a war cry, but the lullaby from the crystal soft, simple human. Oren joined her. Not with voice, but with resonance, his body vibrating at a frequency that made the stone floor hum. Cole placed his hands on the walls of the chamber, and the Citadel answered. Light rose from the floors, from the walls, from the very air. The heart forge beneath the Citadel stirred. The egg cracked. Not with fire, but with silence. A new dragon emerged, small, fragile, its scales the color of midnight after rain. It looked at Cole and chirped. Lyra named it Kalen. That moment the queen entered the chambers. She saw the newborn dragon, saw Cole, saw Lyra, and for the first time, her eyes held not anger, but wonder. But wonder did not last. Shouts echoed from above. The Citadel Shuka hive ship had broken through the upper shield. The queen turned to Lyra. You will take the child dragon and the human. And Lyra shook her head. No, I will fight. The queen stepped, closer, voice low. You do not understand, Lyra. If they take the Citadel, they take the song. And without the song, the galaxy goes dark. Lyra looked at Cole. He nodded. Then we do not let them take it. The queen sighed. You are more like your father than I. Thought. She turned to the guard. Seal the heart forge chamber. Prepare the sky lances. We hold the line. Lyra knew what that meant. The queen would stay, and likely die. But before she could speak, the queen placed a hand on her cheek. Go train with your human. Learn his chaos, learn his hope. And when the time comes, sing louder than they can scream. Lyra bowed her head. Then she turned. Cole and Oren waited, Kale perched on Cole's shoulder. They left the Citadel not as fugitives, but as the first note of a new song. Above them the sky burned. The war had truly begun. The storm belts of Virelis were not made of rain or wind, but of shattered data and broken light, remnants of old battles and failed experiments. The air crackled with static, and the ground shifted like memory itself, unstable and sharp. Lyra led Cole and the dragons through the ruins of the old observatory, its towers leaning like tired bones against the red sky. Oren moved ahead, his scales dimmed to blend with the shadows. Kale clung to Cole's shoulder, small but alert, his eyes wide, with every new sound. They had been running for 2 days since the Citadel fell, not in fire but in silence. The Krellaks had not blasted the walls. They had whispered through them, turned the sentinels against their own, and walked in like guests. The Queen had held the throne room long enough for Lyra to escape, but no word had come since. Lyra did not cry. She sang instead low and steady a tune without words that kept the static from crawling into her mind. Cole walked beside her, his steps sure, his eyes scanning the ruins not for danger but for patterns. "You are not like other humans," Lyra said one evening as they rested in the hollow of a collapsed dome. Cole sat with his back against cold stone, Kyle curled in his lap. Oren lay nearby, his tail wrapped loosely around them both. "What do you mean?" other stories say. Humans shout. They break things, they burn. What they cannot understand. Cole looked at the sky. "We did that once. Then we learned how by losing everything." He paused. "When Earth fell, we thought it was the end, but silence taught us to listen. Not just to others, but to ourselves. The Krelax feed on noise, on fear, on the chaos of not knowing who you are. So you became quiet, not quiet." He said, "Calm. There is a difference." Lyra thought about that. Oren lifted his head and nudged Cole's hand. Cole smiled. "You understand him." Lyra nodded. "He has known humans before." Cole's eyes softened. Maybe his kind never forgot us." That night, Lyra dreamed of fire and blue skies and a woman singing under a yellow sun. She woke with tears on her cheeks, but no sound. Cole was watching. "You heard it too," she said. "The lullaby. It is not just a song. It is a map to who we are." In the morning they began to train, not with weapons, but with presence. Cole stood in the center of the ruined observatory. His hands empty. "Show me how you fight," Lyra said. "I do not fight," he said. "I respond." "Then show me how you respond." Cole closed his eyes. "Breathe," he said. Lyra breathed. "Now feel the space around you, not with your eyes, with your skin," she tried. First she felt only wind and cold. Then she felt Oren's warmth behind her. Kale's tiny heartbeat against Cole's chest, the hum of the red giant far above. "Good," he said now. "Move not to strike, but to be where you need to be." He stepped to the side, not fast, not flashy. Just gone from where he was and present where he needed to. Lyra tried to follow, but her steps were heavy, her mind too full of war and loss. Again he said. They trained for hours, days even. Lyra learned to move without sound, to strike without anger, to stand without fear. One evening, as the sky turned deep violet, Cole placed his hand on her chest, just over her heart. "Your fear is louder than your song," he said. She flinched, but then she heard it beneath the pounding of her pulse, beneath the memories of falling towers and silent citadels. There it was, the song faint but there, like a star behind clouds. She looked at him. "How do I make it louder?" "By remembering you are not alone." Oren stepped forward and pressed his forehead to hers. Skull chirped from Cole's shoulder. Lyra closed her eyes and sang, not loud, not proud, just true. The ground beneath them trembled, not from war, but from awakening. Deep below the ruins, the heart forge stirred again. Not the one under the citadel, but an older one hidden here in the bones of the first observatory. Cole led them down through cracked stone and rusted metal into a chamber lined with roots that glowed faintly blue. In the center sat another pedestal, and on it, another egg, but this one was already open, empty. Yet the air hummed with power. Cole knelt. This is where the first star singers met. The first humans. Lyra stared. That cannot be. It is not written. History is written by those who survive, Cole said. Not by those who listen. He placed his hand on the stone and the chamber answered. Light rose from the floor, not bright but deep, wrapping around Lyra like a second skin. Oren lowered his head. Kyle spread his tiny wings. Lyra felt her blood sing, not just her voice, but her very cells. She understood then. The elves had not created the song. They had inherited it from humans, from dragons, from the silence between stars. That night they returned to the surface, but the peace did not last. A scout drone streaked across the sky, black and sharp like a shard of nightmare. The Krelax had found them. Lyra turned to Cole. What do we do? Cole looked at Oren, then at Kale. We show them what silence can do. The next morning they stood at the edge of the silver forests, the Krelax hive. Ship hung in the sky, low and heavy like a storm about to break. Lyra rode Oren, her hands empty. Her voice ready. Cole stood on the ground, Kale on his shoulder. No weapons, no shields, just presence. The hive ship opened, not with soldiers, but with sound, a psychic Scream tore through the air, not loud but deep. It unraveled. Thought it turned memory to dust. It made the silver trees wilt and the ground crackle. These who heard it went mad or fell silent forever. But Lyra sang, not over the scream but through it. Her voice was not strong, it was steady, and Oren added his resonance, Kale added his silence, and Kolakol stood in the center and did nothing, but his stillness was louder than the scream. The hive ship faltered, for a moment, just a moment, but it was enough. Lyra saw it then, the weakness in the hive mind. It could not understand stillness. It could not process calm, because calm meant choice, and choice meant freedom. And freedom was the one thing the Krelax could not consume. They retreated, not defeated, but confused. Lyra landed Oren beside Cole. You did that. No, Coley said, we did that. Kale chirped happily. But their victory was short. In the distance, the sky citadel burned, not with fire but with black light. The Krelax had taken the heart of Virelis, and with it the main song node. The queen was gone. Lyra fell to her knees. Cole knelt beside her. She is not gone, he said. Her song is still here. He touched Lyra's chest. And you, Lyra looked up. What do we do now? Cole stood. We go back. But they will kill you. Then I die singing. Oren nudged her hand. Kale climbed onto her shoulder. Lyra stood, and for the first time she did not feel fear. She felt purpose. They walked toward the burning citadel. Not as fugitives, not as warriors, but as reminders that even in the darkest silence, single human voice, a single elven song, single dragon's breath could light the stars again. The sky citadel no longer stood as it once had, its towers bent like broken spines, its mirrored halls now dark and hollow. The silver forest below had gone still, their glow dimmed as if holding their breath. The Krelax had not destroyed Virelis. With fire or force, they had done something worse. They had silenced. Lyra stood at the edge of the ruined plaza, her boots crunching on shattered glass that once reflected stars. Now it reflected only smoke. Cole stood beside her, his face calm, but his eyes heavy. Oren coiled close, his scales dull with grief. Even Kale, the young dragon perched on Lyra's shoulder, did not chirp. He watched the citadel with wide, unblinking eyes. They had returned not to reclaim, but to witness. The Hive Queen had taken root in the heart of the citadel. Not as a guest, but as a parasite fused with the world core. The ancient elven power source that once sang the moon into harmony. Now it pulsed black and slow like a dying heart. The Krelax fleet hung in orbit, not moving, not attacking, just waiting, as if the war was already over. Lyra turned to Cole. What do we do? Cole looked at the citadel, then at the sky. We remind them that silence is not empty. He walked forward. Oren followed. Lyra took a breath and walked. With them as they neared the main gate, the ground trembled, not from engines but from thought. The hive mind reached out, not with weapons, but with memory. It showed Lyra her mother's last moments, the queen standing alone in the throne room singing, until her voice broke, until her body turned to ash, and still she sang. Lyra staggered. Cole caught her arm. Do not let it take you, he said. It shows you pain to make you afraid. I am afraid, then be afraid and walk anyway. She nodded. They entered the citadel inside. The halls were empty but not quiet. Whispers moved through the air, not voices but echoes of them, fragments of songs half-remembered, thoughts half-formed. The hive. Queen was learning elven ways, trying to mimic their harmony, but it was hollow-like. A shell with no sea inside. In the grand chamber where the war council once met, the floor was gone, replaced by a pool of black liquid that shimmered with stolen memories, and in the center floated the hive queens. She was not a monster, not in the way stories tell monsters. She was beautiful in a terrible way, her form shifting between elven grace and insect sharpness. Her eyes held galaxies, but they were dead galaxies. No light, no life, just endless hunger. She saw them and smiled. The last princess, the last human, the last dragon. Her voice was many voices woven together, smooth and cold. You should have run, little ones. Lyra stepped forward. You do not belong here. The hive queen laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Belonging is a human idea. We do not belong, we simply are, and what is will be silent. Cole moved beside Lyra. You fear sound. The hive queen tilted her head. We do not fear, we. Correct, chaos is a disease and you humans are. It's fever. Cole shook his head. Chaos is choice, And choice is life? Hive Queen's form rippled. Then let us end it. She raised a hand and the citadel screamed. Not a sound, but a wave of psychic force that tore at the mind. Orin roared a sound so deep it cracked the walls. Kyle flared his wings and released a pulse of null energy that bent the wave just enough for Lyra to stand. She began to sing not a battle hymn, but the lullaby. The human lullaby. Soft, simple, true. The Hive Queen faltered. What is this memory? Cole said. The one thing you cannot consume because it is not yours to take. The Hive Queen snarled and lashed out with tendrils of black thought. Orin met them with frost breath that froze them. Mid-air, Kale darted forward, his small body weaving through the chaos, his silence cutting holes in the hive minds. Control, but it was not enough. The Hive Queen grew, drawing power from the world core, her form expanding, filling the chamber. Her voice now a storm. You think your song matters? It is a whisper in an ocean of silence. Lyra's voice cracked. Cole stepped. In front of her, no, he turned to Lyra. Trust Methan. He walked toward the hive. Queen Lyra reached for him. Cole did not look back. Orin growled but did not stop him. Kale hovered in place, his eyes wide. Cole stopped before the Hive Queen. You want silence, he said, then listen. He pulled the crystal from his pouch. Not to activate it, but to offer it. The Hive Queen hesitated. What is this trick? No trick, just a gift. She reached for it with a tendril. The moment she touched it, the crystal bloomed. Not with data, but with feeling. Arth's final sunrise, not as a memory but as an experience. The Hive Queen saw it, a blue sky streaked with gold, ocean waves gentle and endless, a woman sitting on a hill holding a child, singing not to win, not to fight, just to say I am here and you are not alone. The Hive Queen froze for the first time in 10,000 years. She felt something, not hunger, not control, but loneliness. A single tear of black light fell from her eye. And in that moment of stillness, Lyra sang louder. Orin unleashed a storm. A void frostkill dove into the world core and bit down with tiny teeth that carried the weight of ancient silence. The Hive Queen screamed, not in pain, but in understanding, and collapsed, not into dust, but into stardust, her form dissolving into light that rose through the broken ceiling and scattered across the sky. The Krelax fleet above went still. Then one by one, their ships powered down, not destroyed but released. The hive mind was gone. The war was over. Lyra ran to Cole. He stood where he was, his hand still outstretched, the crystal now dark and cold. Are you all right? He looked at her and smiled. I am tired. She hugged him. Orin nuzzled his back. Kyle landed on his head and purred. Around them, the citadel began to hell. The mirrors cleared. The silver forest below pulsed once with soft light. Virelli's was alive, but the cost was heavy. The queen was gone. The citadel scarred, and Cole looked older, as if the memory had taken something from him. Lyra held his hand. You gave her a memory. He nodded, and she gave us peace. Orin rumbled softly. Kyle chirped. Lyra looked up at the sky where the red giant burned low. It would not last much longer. But for now they had won, not with weapons, not with rage, but with a lullaby, and a human who remembered how to be kind. They walked out of the citadel together, not as survivors, but as witnesses to the power of a single quiet voice, in a galaxy that had forgotten how to listen. Dawn on Virelli's came slow and quiet. The red giant hung low in the sky, its light softer now, as if it too had witnessed the war and chosen to rest. The silver forests below shimmered with renewed strength, their glow steady, not frantic. The air, no longer hummed with fear, but with something gentler, something like breathe in the ruins of the sky citadel where once warlords argued and queens ruled. A new gathering formed, not in the grand chamber but in the open plaza where the sky could hear. Every word. Elves came from the outer rings, from hidden caves, from ships that had fled and now returned. They came not with weapons but with questions. At the center stood Lyra. Wore no crown, no armor, only the same simple tunic she had worn the night Cole arrived. Orin lay beside her, his scales catching the dim light like liquid night. Kale perched on her shoulder, his wings still small but strong, and beside her stood Cole. His clothes were worn, his face lined with exhaustion, but his eyes were clear. The crowd parted as the High Queen's last counselor, an old elf named Malus, stepped forward. Her face lined with grief but her voice steady. "The queen is gone," she said. Lyra nodded. "But her song remains." Malus looked at Cole and this human. "He saved us," Lyra said. "Not alone, together." Malus studied Cole for a long moment, then bowed her head slightly. "The citadel is yours to rebuild if you wish." Lyra shook her head. "I do not want to rebuild what was broken. I want to build something new." That evening, under the fading light of the red giant, Lyra called the First Alliance Council. Elves, dragons, and one human sat in a circle, not on thrones, but on stone benches worn smooth by time. Orin lay in the center, his tail curled around Kale, who slept soundly. Cole sat with his hands resting on his knees, his silence as present as any voice. They spoke of healing, not war, of memory, not conquest, of songs, not screams. And when the stars came out one by one like old friends returning, Lyra stood. "We will not hide." Again she said, "We will not forget, and we will not fight alone." The elves murmured in agreement. But the true test came the next morning. A ship arrived, not Krellax, not elven humans Maul, sleek and silent. It bore no flag, but its hull was marked with a symbol. None on Virellis had seen in 8,000 years a circle with a single line through it. The old Earth peace signet landed in the lower bay, and from it stepped 3 humans, 2 women and 1 man, all dressed like Cole, simple clothes, calm eyes. No weapons. They walked to the plaza. Cole met them halfway. They embraced, not with grand words, but with quiet nods. Lyra watched. These were his people. The ones who had waited. The ones who had remembered. The lead woman stepped forward. Her name was Nora. Her hair streaked with gray, her hands calloused from work, not war. "We felt the silence break," she said. "So we came." Lyra approached. "You knew he would succeed." Nora smiled. "We knew he would try. That was enough." The days that followed were filled with work, not ceremony. Elves and humans cleared rubble together. Dragons carried stone from the mountains. Humans taught elves how to grow food in broken soil. Elves taught humans how to listen to the stars. And through it all, Cole stayed near Lyra, not as a guest, not as a her, but as something quieter, something real. One evening, as the red giant dipped below the horizon, Lyra found Cole on the old balcony where they had first met. Orin lay nearby, Kale chasing motes of light through the air. "You could leave," she said. He looked at her. "Where would I go?" "Arth is gone, not gone," he said, "hidden, and now it can return." She turned to him. "Will you stay?" He did not answer right away. He looked at the stars, then at her, then at the dragons. "I have no home. But this?" She took his hand then. "Stay, not as my guest, not as my weapon, but as my human." He smiled and nodded. Below them, the plaza filled with light elves and humans sitting together, sharing stories, not of war, but of children, of gardens, of songs learned and lost and found again. Weeks past, the Alliance grew. Ships arrived from distant systems, drawn by the silence that was no longer empty, but full of life. And one morning the High Council gathered, not to plan war, but to name a new ruler. They offered Lyra the throne. She accepted. But with conditions. The throne would not be hers alone. It would be shared, not with blood, but with bond. And so it was that in the rebuilt plaza, under a sky full of listening stars, the elves named Lyra heir, not just to the moon of Virellis, but to the first pact between elves, dragons, and humans in 10,000 years. And when the queen's last advisor asked who would stand beside her, Lyra turned to Cole and said, "My human." The crowd did not cheer. They sang a single note at first, then many, not elven, not human, but something new, something born of silence and starlight. Cole did not take a title. He asked only for a ship and a place among the stars. But Lyra held his hand and said, "You are not leaving." Orin rumbled in agreement. Kale landed on his shoulder and chirped, and, far above, the newborn dragon spread his wings. The galaxy held its breath. The war was over. The legend had just begun.